It's not a rumor whispered behind closed doors. It's not some fan-made fantasy buried in a Reddit thread. This came straight from inside the locker room, and once you hear the words, you can't unhear them. What if the story of Von Miller in Denver isn't over yet? Because this week, something powerful happened. Something emotional. Something that feels bigger than contracts, cap space, or roster math. It started with one current Bronco saying the quiet part out loud, and it ended with a franchise legend opening the door himself. If you followed the Denver Broncos for more than 5 minutes, you already know what Von Miller means to this city. But what you may not realize is how deeply his legacy still echoes inside that locker room today, especially with the players tasked with carrying the torch forward. Nik Bonitto didn't hesitate, not even for a second. When asked about Von Miller, Bonitto didn't give a politically correct answer. He didn't dodge the moment. He leaned straight into it, and what he said revealed just how powerful Miller's shadow still is in Denver. "I grew up watching him, bro." That's not a soundbite. That's a confession. Bonitto wasn't talking about watching tape for scouting purposes. He was talking about falling in love with football, about being a kid glued to the screen, watching number 58 terrorize quarterbacks, redefine edge rushing, and turn defense into must-see TV. Since 2013, Von Miller wasn't just a player to Bonitto. He was the player, the blueprint, the standard. And that's where the story really begins, because this isn't just about nostalgia. This is about lineage. Nik Bonitto is one of the faces of the Broncos' defensive future, a 2-time Pro Bowler, a rising force off the edge, a player expected to carry this defense for years. And here he is, openly admitting that the man he modeled his entire game after might still have something left to give. Obviously, I'd love to have him come back and retire as a Bronco. Those words matter. In the NFL, players are trained to speak carefully, to avoid saying anything that could be taken as criticism of teammates or management, to keep things neutral. Bonitto did the opposite. He spoke from the heart, and when he said it would be a great thing to have Von Miller back in that linebacker room, he wasn't just talking about snaps or sacks. He was talking about knowledge, about legacy. One of the greatest of all time, not greatest Bronco. About learning from one of the greatest defensive players to ever put on a helmet. That phrase matters too. Not greatest linebacker, greatest of all time. That's the level of reverence we're talking about. Now here's where it gets interesting, because Bonitto's comments didn't exist in a vacuum. They landed in the middle of a moment where Von Miller himself has been doing a lot of reflecting, a lot of talking, and maybe, just maybe, a lot of imagining. Last Tuesday, Von Miller responded to a tweet comparing him to Cleveland Browns superstar Myles Garrett. And instead of deflecting or staying silent, Miller leaned into the conversation, confident, proud, still competitive. And that confidence spilled into something much bigger. "Come on, man, y'all make room for me after this season." That's not subtle. That's not a maybe. That's a door being cracked open by the legend himself. Miller didn't just say he'd be open to a return. He painted a picture. He talked about that linebacker room, about Nik Bonitto, about Jonathan Cooper, about giving them everything he has left. Every piece of knowledge, every trick, every lesson earned through years of dominance. "I would love to be in that linebacker room and give Nik Bonitto all the knowledge that I got." Think about how rare that is. Super Bowl champions don't usually speak like this. Hall of Fame level players don't often put themselves in mentor mode publicly. But Von Miller isn't chasing stats anymore. He's chasing meaning. And that's what makes this moment feel different. Von Miller was drafted 2nd overall by the Denver Broncos in 2011. He didn't just arrive in Denver, he transformed it. Rookie of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, Super Bowl 50 MVP, the face of a championship defense that still lives in highlight reels and memories. When Von Miller lined up on the edge, quarterbacks felt it before the snap. Offensive coordinators built entire game plans around slowing him down. And even then, it often didn't matter. He didn't just rush the passer. He broke games. And when the Broncos won Super Bowl 50, it wasn't just a team victory. It was a coronation. Von Miller wasn't just great. He was legendary. That's why his departure in 2021 hit so hard. When Miller was traded to the Rams, it felt like the end of an era. And yet, even there, he proved he still had it. Another Super Bowl ring. Another chapter of dominance. Another reminder that elite never leaves quietly. Then came Buffalo. 3 seasons with the Bills. Different role, different expectations. Still respected. Still dangerous. And now, after signing a 1-year deal with the Commanders in July 2025, Von Miller finds himself at a crossroads. This isn't about chasing one more contract. This is about closing the circle. That's why Bonitto's words resonated so deeply. Because they confirmed something fans have been feeling for years. Von Miller isn't just a former Bronco. He's part of the franchise's identity. And identity matters. For young players like Bonitto, having someone like Miller in the room isn't just inspiring, it's transformational. It's the difference between knowing what greatness looks like and learning how to sustain it. Imagine the practice field. Von Miller lined up next to Nik Bonitto. corrections after reps, stories between drills. Small adjustments that never show up on a stat sheet but change careers. That's the stuff championships are built on. And here's the part nobody is talking about enough. The Broncos are searching for culture. Denver has been trying to recapture the edge, the swagger, the defensive identity that defined them during their championship years. They've cycled through coaches, through quarterbacks, through philosophies, but culture doesn't come from a playbook. It comes from people. Von Miller is culture. He represents the standard, the expectation, the idea that defense in Denver isn't just a unit, it's a weapon. And when a current player openly says he'd love to have that back, it tells you everything you need to know about what this team still craves. Now let's be clear. This isn't about turning back the clock and pretending Von Miller is still 25. This is about using his presence wisely, strategically, intentionally, limited snaps, high-impact moments, leadership that echoes beyond Sundays. That's how legends age gracefully in this league, and that's why this feels possible. Von Miller himself said it. He wants to contribute in any way he can. He wants to help. He wants to give back to the franchise that made him who he is. Those words don't come lightly. They come from reflection. They come from gratitude, and they come from someone who understands that legacy isn't just about how you start or how dominant you were. It's about how you finish. Imagine the moment. Von Miller walking back into Empower Field in orange and blue. The crowd rising. The roar. The acknowledgement that some stories deserve a proper ending. And now imagine Nik Bonitto watching from across the room. The kid who grew up studying every move. Now standing shoulder to shoulder with his hero. That's not just football. That's storytelling. That's the kind of moment franchises are built on. Now here's where you come in. Because this isn't just a front office decision. It's an identity question. It's about what the Broncos want to be moving forward. They want to reconnect with their defensive roots. Do they want to use experience to elevate youth? Do they believe legacy still matters in today's NFL? Or is this just a feel-good idea that stays in the imagination? That's the tension. That's the curiosity. And that's why this conversation isn't going away anytime soon. So now the question is yours to answer. Should the Denver Broncos make room for Von Miller to come home and retire where it all began? Or is it better to let the past stay in the past and move forward without looking back? And here's the part that makes this even heavier when you really sit with it. Von Miller isn't just any former star trying to squeeze out one last season. He's a symbol of the last time the Denver Broncos truly ruled the NFL. For an entire generation of fans, Von Miller is the reason Sundays felt inevitable. The reason 3rd and long felt like a turnover waiting to happen. The reason quarterbacks sped up their internal clocks the moment they saw orange and blue. That kind of presence doesn't disappear when the pads come off. Inside NFL locker rooms, there's an unspoken hierarchy. Young players listen differently when a legend speaks. Coaches manage differently. Standards rise without anyone needing to say a word. And that's why what Bonitto said wasn't just admiration, it was a quiet acknowledgement that the Broncos are still searching for that authoritative voice on defense. Because talent alone hasn't been the issue in Denver. Effort hasn't been the issue either. What's been missing is belief. The belief that when the moment gets heavy, someone will take it personally. Someone will tilt the field. Someone will refuse to let the game drift away. That's what Von Miller always did best. He didn't just play defense. He imposed his will. And when you look at the current Broncos roster, you see flashes. You see potential. You see players like Bonitto and Jonathan Cooper growing into real threats. But imagine accelerating that growth with one voice, one presence. One example that shows what greatness looks like every single day, not just on Sundays. That's where the return becomes more than ceremonial, it becomes strategic. Von Miller doesn't need to lead the league in sacks to change the trajectory of this team. He just needs to exist within it, to correct hand placement, to talk through film, to explain how to attack protections, not just beat them, to teach the mental side of rushing the passer, the chess match that separates good from legendary. Those are lessons you don't learn from YouTube clips. You learn them from sitting next to someone who lived it. And for Von Miller, Denver isn't just another city. It's where his legend was born, where his name became synonymous with dominance, where he delivered one of the greatest Super Bowl performances the league has ever seen. Super Bowl 50 wasn't just a win. It was a defensive masterclass, and Von Miller was the conductor. That matters when we talk about legacy. Because players remember how franchises treat their legends. They remember whether teams value history or discard it the moment the contract ends. Bringing Von Miller back wouldn't just be about him. It would send a message to every player in that locker room and every future free agent watching from afar. This is a place that honors greatness. This is a place where your impact matters beyond the stat sheet. And let's not ignore the business side of it either. Because football is emotional, but it's also real. A Von Miller return would electrify the fan base instantly. Jerseys, ticket sales, energy in the stadium, national attention. All of it comes with him. But more importantly, It reconnects the Broncos to an identity they've been chasing since Peyton Manning retired. An identity built on defense, an identity built on pressure, an identity built on fear. And that's why this moment feels like more than off-season chatter. Because it wasn't a reporter floating a hypothetical. It was a current Bronco saying, "I want him here." And it was Von Miller replying, "Make room." Those are the kinds of exchanges that turn into reality faster than people expect. Now think about how rare it is for a legend to still feel wanted by the team that drafted him, for the locker room to openly welcome him, for the timing to line up where his experience is needed and his role can be managed intelligently. Those windows don't stay open long in the NFL. They either close quietly or you walk through them boldly. And that's the decision Denver is staring at. Do you bring back the player who defined your last championship era to help shape the next one? Or do you let the opportunity pass and hope culture develops organically? Because culture doesn't just appear. It's taught, it's enforced, it's inherited, and Von Miller is culture. For Nik Bonitto, this isn't about starstruck admiration anymore. It's about legacy transfer, about learning how to sustain excellence, not just reach it, about understanding what it takes to be the guy when everyone in the stadium knows the ball is coming your way. That's the final evolution of a great defender. And that's what makes this story so compelling. It's not about the past versus the future. It's about the past empowering the future. So as this off-season unfolds, keep your eye on Denver. Keep your ear open for quiet conversations that suddenly get louder. Because when players and legends start speaking this openly, something usually follows. And when it does, you'll remember where this all started, with one young linebacker saying he grew up watching a legend, and that legend reminding the league he still has something to give. Now let me ask you directly, if you're running the Denver Broncos, do you bring Von Miller home for one final chapter? Or do you believe the next era should stand on its own without looking back? Sound off in the comments. This debate isn't ending anytime soon, and Broncos country deserves to be heard. Drop your take in the comments, because this one isn't just about a roster spot. It's about what the Denver Broncos stand for.